Was the Apostle Paul the original Antichrist? Former minister and Bible college graduate Jeffrey Daugherty raises this and other staggering questions from the New Testament itself. The Christian Whistleblower asks if Jesus' original message has been warped into a fear and guilt-based control matrix. Here's Ali with more.
Thanks, Seb. Daugherty's 35 years of research challenge everyone to consider new perspectives and ask themselves, just what lies behind my religion? Are we born with original sin or the spark of divinity within?
Deep questions, Ali. Thanks. The Christian Whistleblower. We'll be watching.
It's late night in the Heartland. Good to see y'all here tonight. Good to hear you. Good to be with you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The most important book ever written. That's my opinion about Caesar's Messiah. We are going to be honored to have the author of that great work with us tonight. Why is it the most important book ever written? Well, for those of us in the West, there's no doubt, and there can be no debate, that the Holy Bible is the foundational document of all Western society, the Old Testament and the New Testament, and particularly the New Testament as well. But what most people sometimes allow to escape their mind is that the Old Testament is really the basis of the New Testament, and all the prophecies tie back. And if the Bible is the foundational work of Western society, which it is, then the most important book ever written about the Bible, and I wrote one too, but mine does not rank with Joe Atwill's. This book tells you what the New Testament is all about, and it ties it back to the Old Testament. So if you love the Bible, or if you live in Western civilization, or if you live anywhere on earth that's heavily affected by Western civilization, you absolutely must read Caesar's Messiah. You must understand Caesar's Messiah, because without it, you cannot understand what the Bible is, and you will never be able to escape from this matrix. You think I'm overstating it? I'm not. It really is that important. I was lucky enough to meet Joe Atwill a few years back on Vinny Eastwood's show. I think Vinny had it set up as sort of a debate, but Joe and I got in there and found out that we were both very much on the same line. And I was coming from a religious background, and Joe comes from a historical and a scholarly background. And I was blown away then. I continue to be blown away, and our audience has grown tremendously since the last time Joe was here. So we want to bring him in, and we want to talk about the most important book ever written for the reasons just stated. And with that, I'd like to welcome in a scholar among scholars, a man that literally has changed the world, and someone that I'm happy and proud to call my friend, ladies and gentlemen, the author of Caesar's Messiah, Mr. Joe Atwill.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, it's so good. It's been too long, but all this craziness has been happening, and it just is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, we really appreciate you taking time out. I know that you don't have a long time tonight, but I also, my wife Cynthia has told me that she's followed you on Facebook, and you have a lot of things to say, not just about Caesar's Messiah and about Shakespeare's Secret Messiah, but you have some very strong and good ideas about what's going on in the world today. Before we start with Caesar's Messiah, do you feel like just giving us maybe an assessment of where you think we are and what you think that we can do, or is that not where you want to go tonight?
No, I'm happy to discuss it. Well, I would say that the COVID lockdown is an attempt to establish a technologic slave state. I think the pandemic is, in general, false. I would list three particular things that I think people should be aware of. The first, of course, is the test which gives the positives, the PCR test. This is fraudulent, and they have known that it was fraudulent from the very beginning. And so you can see the malevolence.
Yes.
The PCR test that we are using in the entire world to generate so-called COVID cases is set on a 40 cycle of amplification. Won't go into the scientism, but anything above a 25 is irrelevant. They have known this. So the case number is false. And then they changed the mortician documents on March 22nd, 2020, to remove the original comorbidities so that the COVID fatalities would appear even when they really were not being caused by COVID. So the way that it's been presented to us has been, been constructed to make us frightened, and we have accepted the lockdown, the restrictions of our rights. And it's funny you talk about the importance of Caesar's Messiah, and I think it is a very important book. But I think that right now, skepticism in terms of what the governments give us as history and reality is extremely important to be skeptical regarding. And so that's why I'm happy that Caesar's Messiah is out and is a well-known book, because I think that not just what has occurred historically, but the reader will become skeptical about, but what is happening to us right now. I think it's just absolutely critical that we resist every attempt to restrain us right now. I'm also very, very skeptical about the vaccines. I don't have enough area in this field to really criticize. Know that we need to suspect that it is malevolent, and I can easily imagine, and I'm working with a number of scientists who are actually quite learned in this area, and together we're trying to warn people about potential dangers of the vaccines. And I'll just say that when you have DNA or mRNA vaccine structures, the idea that you are free of adverse reactions to it after a month or 2 months is not correct. You can have very profound adverse reactions a year later, 2 years later. And if it is determined, and I think that anyone who really does the homework and does the research can demonstrate it for themselves, that the COVID pandemic is false and was constructed for malevolent purposes. Jeff, no one who is that position should take the vaccine. No one who is aware that it is possible that this could be malevolent should take it, because there's just every imaginable kinds of mischief they can do with this technology, with the gene altering technology. And so time will tell about this particular tranche of vaccines, but the principle is current and it's eternal. We have to resist them. We simply have to resist them, because if we give the right to the government to alter our genetic material, to manipulate it, because you have a semantical issue about whether or not the DNA is actually changed, but this is, believe me, it's just semantics. They are manipulating our genetics with these vaccines. And if we give up the rights of our genetic material to a government, right, which incidentally, of course, never went through any democratic process,
right,
to make this decision, this is just given to us under these emergency authorizations, well, we are literally losing our humanity. And so I have done everything I think I can, and I will continue to do even more going forward, to just make people aware of the dangers of the vaccines, potential dangers, and also to try to encourage research, independent research on every single person's part. Everyone should be trying to study the details of the COVID pandemic that the government is giving us, because I think if they do research, they'll find that they're false.
Absolutely. And Joe, if there's anything that either I or this channel can do in regards to that, please don't hesitate to call upon me. But speaking of viruses, there's no doubt that this fear and guilt, blood magic, mind control matrix is a virus. And I'm of the definite opinion that Caesar's Messiah is definitely the antidote for that. Please just pretend like no one here has ever heard of Caesar's Messiah. Take us through from A and to Z, and hopefully this will take more than one show, but please don't feel rushed. Make sure that you do hit everything that you think is important, and just bring our audience up to speed on Caesar's Messiah. Again, the most important book I think ever written. Please, Joe, just take the floor.
Okay, well, thank you. The Gospels are a particular kind of literature. And this has been widely understood to a degree. In other words, people can see that many of the stories that the ministry that are contained within the ministry of Jesus are based on passages from the Old Testament. So this is typology. The authors of the Gospels have woven in to the life of Jesus these events from the Old Testament to create the impression that he has been foreseen and is part of the process of the Hebraic lineage of divine prophecies and prophets, And so this was widely known. Now, what I determined was that the events from his ministry that had been seen as historical and non-typologic were in fact just based on the story from another book. So scholars were quite comfortable with the idea that the Old Testament was used for part of the construction of the New Testament. Everyone is just, it's self-evident. But what hadn't really been recognized is that stories like the crucifixion and the fishing for men, that all of these events were based upon a particular military campaign. And this is the military campaign that the Flavians waged through Judea in 70 AD. Now, the system of typology that is used, and if I have to touch my nose, it's because there's a lot of allergies right now. I'm in Santa Barbara, California, and we're having our spring allergy season, so excuse me before that. But
no problem.
The system of typology that is used is very specific, and it makes it very easy for a reader to understand once that someone becomes aware of the system and knows how it operates. In fact, you could almost, armed with the understanding of the system, just leave Caesar's Messiah aside, and a normal reader, I think if you had a lot of time and you were wanted to try it, you could probably do a lot of this on your own. But fortunately, I suppose Caesar's Messiah does exist, so it's easy for a person to go through it. The first batch of typology that I'll show is a little, the pre-ministry of Jesus. It was constructed in a way to show the reader what the overall typologic system is built upon. And I'm just going to real quickly go over these, because just to give your listeners a sense of what the system is, because when we go into the longer aspect of this, which is the part which looks forward, there's some really complicated passages, and it's very lengthy for one thing. But just to understand how the system operates, you have concepts, names, locations occurring in the same sequence. All right. So in the beginning of the Gospels, the first page, you have the story of Joseph going to Egypt. That's Matthew 2:13. Matthew 2:16, Herod massacres the boys.
Yes.
Matthew 2:20, you have a statement by an angel. They are dead which sought the young child's life, and now you return from Egypt to Israel. So you have the locations and concepts. Then you have the baptism, the famous story of Jesus's baptism. I'm going to go into this parallel in detail in a second, but then Jesus now goes into the wilderness for 40 days. And then you have quotations, and these are directly from the Old Testament stories. He's tempted by bread, Matthew 4:4 and 4:7. The devil is told, do not tempt God. And then in 4:10, you have the statement, worship only God, that Jesus makes. Now, all of this is typologic. None of this is history, even though incredibly you have, like whole kind of fantasy novels about Jesus living in Egypt, things like this. But all of this is fictional typology. It all is based upon the story in Exodus. And well, it starts actually in Genesis, where you have the story of Joseph going to Egypt. Now that Joseph, the one that was the archetypical Joseph, he also is a dreamer of dreams, just like the so-called father of Jesus in Matthew. He dreams. And then you have Pharaoh massacring the boys. You have all the men are dead. That statement is lifted verbatim from Exodus 4, which then Matthew uses in 2:20. Now going forward, you have the return, the Israelites return. They go from Egypt back to Israel, just as the journey that Jesus made. Now you have the passing through water, Exodus 14. Now that parallel is very complicated. I mean, and you have the baptism of Jesus by John the Baptist in Matthew 3:13. But in Matthew 14, you have the Israelites pass through water, and you wouldn't really notice it as a typological parallel, except for the sequence, which provides context and meaning, right? So sequence is very important. And then the author of Matthew has lifted some aspects of the story in Exodus 14. I believe it's here that the statement is, out of Egypt I called my son. Which was, okay, so it happens in Exodus, but it also is repeated in Matthew. So the author is saying, look, it's a complicated parallel, but I'm helping you see it. It's where the location and the sequence, and also by this little additive, description, so you can see it is. And then now you go into the wilderness. Now Moses goes for 40 years, right? So typology is not verbatimism. There is some verbatim aspects to it, but it can be fairly askew as long as there is enough details to keep an alert reader in the sequence, right? So it's 40, the number 40 for both of the wilderness experience and of course the locations. And then you have then you have the experiences from which you have the quotes that Matthew uses, tempted by bread, do not tempt God, and worship only God. So you now have this long typological system, the whole pre-ministry of Jesus. Now, just to digress, there's something very important that actually has occurred when a reader, understands that the whole pre-ministry is based upon, is not historical, rather that it's typologic, because no one can answer the question, and never will be able to be answered, was Jesus a historical character? Because the question is not a coherent question. It's not something that can be disproved. And you have too many semantical variations of potential answers, wherein you can say, well, there was a person who was a Messiah. He lived around this time, and then he was embellished. As long as you have the principle of embellishment as being accepted, you don't really have any way of negating the idea of Jesus being a historical character. So it's a question is, what's the point of even discussing it? But what you can do is you can determine the nature of the literature. You see, we don't really have the capacity to go back and to see if Jesus comes out of the tomb.
Right.
But we have the New Testament at our disposal. And we can concretely answer the question, what kind of literature is it? Because I believe Caesar's Messiah is pretty exhaustive in this answer. And we can now say with certainty that the literature is not historical. The literature is typologic, which is a kind of fiction. And therefore, the character Jesus is not a historical character. That's not possible. All of the events you can see that we've gone over that relate back to the Old Testament, all of these events have a very natural explanation in terms of fiction, don't they? You can say, look, the author simply lifted them out of the Old Testament. Very much a much stronger, more parsimonious explanation for the literature that Matthew has created than the idea that it's historical, that it's miraculous, that Jesus had this kind of, these sorts of bizarre experiences. So that is typology that is constructed using sequence as a very, very important aspect of it. Okay, so sequence is absolutely necessary. We saw in that when we talked briefly about the passing through water, the baptism, you can't actually see that if you just took that particular parallel and put it on a piece of paper, and asked someone to comment on it. Most people would not even recognize that it is a parallel, because the only thing that actually links it would be the passing through water concept, which is not particularly visible. You have the Israelites being chased by the Egyptians, and over here in Matthew, you've got John the Baptist with a leather loincloth on, and it just these stories just don't seem to gel. But when you see them in context, now you can understand that there is a purpose, right, for the parallels. It fits into this overall pattern. So that's the basis of the gospel. So what hadn't been recognized by New Testament scholars, I mean, my sort of unique contribution is that while they had studied the language, I mean, the Greek had been studied into the dust, and all of these little historical aspects of first century Judaism, all of these different areas that they had gone into, and all of the millions of PhDs that had been passed out, but they hadn't looked at one simple thing. They hadn't asked if the overall sequence of Jesus's ministry had a meaning. That question, even though this typologic system that I mentioned, now I actually came across this on my own, and I was very impressed with myself, thinking, gee, it's a really kind of a neat thing to have discovered, Well, the fact is, many scholars had seen it before. I wasn't the first. R.D. Goulder had written a whole book about the thing, for God's sakes. So it's been studied carefully, but it never was by anyone for any reason. And so this was really what happened to me was I was very interested in the Gospels because I had been raised a Catholic, and I was just curious about the character of Jesus historically. There were a lot of, there were books starting to be written about the potential of the Dead Sea Scrolls being, having some secret relationship to Christianity. I read James, the Brother of Jesus by Robert Eisenman, and he was, giving the impression that there could be a Roman hand that's sort of in back of the Gospels, which is kind of easy to understand, concept because of the pro-Roman aspect of what should be a xenophobic messianic religion, obviously, based on the activity in the Old Testament. But anyway, so I started to read Josephus, and because I wanted to have a little more informed place to, understand the Gospels, and I started to see odd relationships. It's just how I am as a reader. I just read in this way. And so I started to see these relationships, and eventually it was all I was studying. I really wasn't interested in the history of Josephus at all. I was just studying. And the idea that I had originally is that the gospel writers were simply using these stories in Josephus as embellishments, as just a way to provide context for a fictional character, and perhaps even making fun of. I thought that Josephus might actually be ridiculing Christianity. And so this was interesting to me, and so I was studying this. And then one day, Jeff, just walking down the street, I go, wait a second, there's something I hadn't actually noticed about all this. Everything that I am studying is occurring in the same sequence. And that was it. I just... Now, with that simple insight, everything becomes absolutely visible. I could now go forward, and all of the bizarre and very, very difficult to see parallels started to become vivid. I could find, for example, I hadn't found the 3 crucified, 1 survived parallel. It had just slipped by me. There is a passage that of course contains the parallel, but I had not read it closely enough. It never clicked to me. But once I knew that it was all in sequence, I simply started to be able to go through the text, and then I could see that oh yes, there it is. And then so this was, once I had the insight that there was this sequence, then suddenly the historicity was gone basically. But now I was dealing with a typologic system that had this very, very long a passage. It was basically the entire story of Jesus from the ministry. The ministry, the first little example of typology I gave, that looks basically backwards to the pre-ministry. But then as you go forward from the adult ministry on, now that entire part of Jesus's life, all of his ministry is all based upon the Flavian campaign. And you see what they're doing is there is actually a point. It's not just a system, for no reason. Jesus looks forward to this character that he calls the Son of Man. It's a messianic title. And this individual is going to come during the Jewish war. Jesus is very specific. He says he's going to come before the generation passes away. And of course, this will be, in a 40-year cycle. And so, that the individual he's talking about, and again, this isn't a concept that's new to scholarship, but many people have wondered about this, is that the authors of the gospel seem to be giving the impression that the Roman commander will be the Messiah that Jesus is looking at. There's a number of Jesus's prophecies which are clearly things that were accomplished by the Flavian military campaign. I mean, the most famous are encircling the city with a wall, which Jesus predicts, the abomination of desolation Jesus predicts, and the Roman Caesar Titus brings about, the raising of the temple. All right. So these are historical events from the war. They completely identify the time that Jesus is looking to, and you can see that the Son of Man that Jesus is predicting is in fact Titus Flavius, who becomes the Roman Caesar. The historian Josephus, who's writing this linked history, he actually takes the position that the Jewish messianic prophecies foresaw the Flavian Caesar. So it's a completely wired body of literature. In other words, the logic that Josephus expresses, where, for example, he'll say that all of God's favor is left the Jews and has now gone over to the Romans. I mean, this is exactly the intellectual position that takes place in the Gospels. So, when you actually compare the theological details, the political perspectives, you can see that it's all coming from the same source. One way that you can see that the literature is linked, which again, it's just odd that it doesn't get some attention from New Testament scholars, but Jesus is the Passover lamb of the new covenant. I mean, they create typology indicating that he is a human Passover lamb, he is slaughtered on the Passover. You have the Last Supper. The imagery of him being, giving his blood and body. But anyway, if you look at the chronology that you can tease out of the New Testament, you can come to the historical date of 33 CE, Passover 33 CE, as the date of the sacrifice of the human Passover lamb who establishes the new covenant. Now, in the first version of this story, you'll recall that you had a 40-year cycle before you had, the ownership of the promised land was given to the Jews. You had to have the wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. Well, if you look at the chronology of the first century, you'll see that Jesus is sacrificed on 33 CE, and then 40 years to the day is the fall of Masada, in which the Romans take possession of all of Judea, so that they have they've replicated the symbolism of the old covenant in the creation of the new covenant. But I mean, it's obvious that this is deliberate. The 40-year cycle is to the day, to the fall, and you must ask the question, what happens 40 years, from the slaughtering of the human Passover lamb? It's just so natural. But again, it's just something that, as far as I know, no one ever bothers to comment on or to try to analyze, because it just proves to me that you have the literature is Roman literature, that it's linking specifically to the Roman conquest of Judea, and that you have to do this after the fact. You can't, predict, when the Romans will conquer Masada. So you can see that these things are all working together, and and so I don't want to go too far, because I think this will probably won't be too interesting, but I wanted to just give a few examples, if I could, of how the parallels work and what happens to the Gospels, when you actually lay the text side by side. And so, in Caesar's Messiah, one of the chapters has what I call the Flavian signature, and here what I do is I don't sort of jump around. I just take the two texts and I just lay them out side by side, and I expose the parallels. Now, some of them are very, very esoteric, and I'm going to get into a few. But I mean, others are really just sort of they're not in any way difficult. I mean, you have in the demons of Gadara, you see the herd ran violently, and so Luke describes Luke 8:33. He goes, the herd ran violently, and if you look at what I've done, I have Josephus laid out, and of wild beasts they rushed down the points of other swords, and some of them were destroyed. After which Luke says that down the steep place and into the lake and drowned. And then Josephus goes on and he says, and they extended themselves a very great way along the banks of the river. And when the darts were thrown at them, as well as the attacks of the horsemen, and then they were pushed into the current. So you can see, once you've linked it up, you start, and again, this is at the same location. So, but even those I think are, fairly complicated. I mean, once you start down the process, you'll start seeing that there are, vivid ones that you immediately recognize as being parallel. And once you've established the fact that they're in a sequence, you can see they're deliberate. I'll just give one.
Just as a point, when you read the book, the way you structured it, laying them out side by side, it's one of those things like you described walking down the street. It really is a eureka moment. You see it, and then all of a sudden you can't unsee it. It's just so plain, and it's so clear. And you did a really great job making it so every single person, really of any type of intellect and wit, can get it. And you're going to get into some of the most striking ones right now. And we just thank service for writing this book.
Right. Well, I mean, it's sort of our kind of a birthright because of the influence that Christianity has had, and I think it's a critical understanding for all citizens to have right now, when a new imperial government has come forward with a kind of religion as this medical tyranny. I think it's an excellent time to generate some skepticism about what the people who control media, are doing with their power. Jesus says, and I will give you the keys of heaven, and wherever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. And now you have wars of the Jews. It says, "Oh, Father, it is just that the scandal of a prisoner should be taken off Josephus together with his iron chain. For if we barely loose his bonds, but cut them to pieces, he will be like a man who has never been bound at all." This concept is, it's very quite parallel. If you saw the binding and loosing side by side, everyone would see that there is a relationship of kind. It wouldn't necessarily demonstrate causality. It's only when you start getting this long list. Now, Joe, the other thing to bear in mind is that the locations, as in the first group that we looked at, the locations are also parallel.
They're exactly. Jesus doesn't act. Titus doesn't act.
Exactly. Same place. Jesus fishes, says, now you'll be fishing for men. Titus at the Sea of Galilee actually goes out and catches men like fish, so that the parallels are not just the concepts, and it's not just the names, but it's locations, and that's very
locations,
specific, the precise locations. It's very important. So anyway, so that now at this point in the ministry, Luke says, now it came to pass that he would return to Jerusalem, set upon his face to go to Jerusalem. He sent messengers before him, and Josephus says, Titus, when he had gotten together part of his forces about him, he then ordered the rest of him to meet him at Jerusalem, and he marched out of Caesarea. So you're conceptually moving along in the same way. I want to talk about the Good Samaritan. It's my favorite parallel, but I'm not at this point. We're going to come back to it. So you have you have these small kind of insignificant things. It's only visible when you have it laid by side. Luke says the crowds are increasing, and Josephus says the Jews became still more in number. They're outside the city of Jerusalem now. Jesus is having that part of the ministry where he's having this combative, argumentative phase with Jews. This is parallel to Titus, right, where he's having these skirmishes one after another. This would be, when you're in secrets, again, some of the stuff would be just straightforward, almost impossible to miss. Now, this one, for example, in Matthew and Luke 12:51, Jesus says, "Do you suppose I came to give peace on earth? I tell you, not at all, but rather division. From now on, 5 in one house will be divided, 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. Josephus writes that the followers, the rebels, did now seize upon the inner temple, and thus that sedition which had been divided into 3 factions was now reduced to 2. This parallel should have been seen before by New Testament scholars, because it's division 3 for 2 is very unusual, and actually I go a little bit into it, but they're talking about basically the same thing. Jesus is talking about the rebellion from the Roman magistrates, so it really should have been something it would see. Now then Jesus talks about cutting down the fruit trees. He says. He says there's a little, kind of questioning, and Jesus says, "Sir, let it alone this year until I dig around it and fertilize it. And if it bears fruit, well, but if not, after that you can cut it down." That's Luke 13:6, I believe. And so Titus, he intended. Anyway, I won't read on, but he says, "So they threw down all the hedges, walls, with the inhabitants had made about their gardens, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city. And they cut down the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the fruit trees that lay between them and the wall of the city, and cut down all the literally the fruit trees that Jesus is, referring to, the same tree. So it's sort of hard to not think of this as, something that would be, reasonably like a parallel. Jesus talks about how to build a tower. And he says, which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the costs, whether he has enough to finish it? And after he laid the foundation, if he's not able to finish it, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. That's Luke 14. Josephus, he says, Titus went round the wall looking for the best place to build a tower. So
the siege towers, right, that they used to.
Yeah, exactly, the siege towers. And now you have the triumphal entrance. Titus comes in. That one is kind of complicated because there's a witticism involved in it, and it's going to take me long to explain. But Josephus makes a mistake, and he says that the Jews cried out, "The sun cometh," when they're actually referring to the Roman stones that come across, and it's sort of Roman humor. But this is the time where both Titus and Jesus have a triumphant entrance into the city, and now you have a historical event. I mean, there's no getting around that Jerusalem is encircled with a wall at this point. Now, you can't. This shows that the parallel relationship is causal. It's dependent, because you can't land on something that is self-evident and historical, like encircling Jerusalem with a wall, which only occurs once in all literature. This sequence can't accidentally just land on this event. Jesus predicts that, he says that, the days will come when your enemies will build an embankment around you, surround you, and close you in on every side. And Titus commands that they must build a wall around the whole city. That's Luke 19, Wars 5. So it's the abomination of desolation occurs at this point. It's exactly the same. You have I've always thought that the kind of the gold standard of the is not so much the encircling with the wall or the raising of the temple, which also occurs in sequence, but it's the three crucified, one survives. The crucifixion stories occur in sequence at the right place in both tales, and they contain just as we talked about the baptism parallel, that had that little like embellishment where out of Egypt I call my son, and that makes the New Testament story vivid, easy to understand. Well, in Josephus you have three crucified, one survives, a story about this parallel, you have the Joseph then asks the Roman commander to take them down. They do, and then one of them survives. So just as in the Gospels, you have three being crucified, one survives, and it's Joseph that asks the Roman commander to take him down for the cross. But the real gold standard, in other words, by that I simply mean that it just demonstrates dependency between the two stories, is the last name of the guy who asked him to come down, asked the Roman commander to bring him down from the cross, because you have Joseph Bar Matthias in the Gospels, whereas in Josephus you have, in the Gospel you have Joseph Arimathea, and in Josephus you have Joseph Bar Matthias. It's actually just two letters that are different, and this has been noticed by other scholars. I mean, I wasn't the first person to notice that, wait a second, Arimathea and Bar Matthias are very similar. It's only when you put that character's name in this sequence, you can see that the dependency that I'm talking about becomes vivid, because you have, it isn't verbatimism. It's just that it's too close to be accidental. You see, this is the system that we're dealing with. And so then you have like a complicated passage where you have at the conclusion, at the end of his ministry, he predicts Simon is going to be taken where he doesn't want to go and have a death to glorify God, but John will be spared that and will not be executed. Josephus concludes the war. They capture the two leaders, Simon and John. The leaders of the Messianic movement in both stories have the same names. So John is captured with Simon. Simon is taken to Rome, given to death to glorify God, which Jesus had predicted, and John is given life imprisonment. So that concludes both stories. There's about 60 sort of parallels that occur in sequence. Some you would only see them if you were really aware of the and this, I mean, just from the perspective of literature, I think I don't want to create the impression that I think what the Romans did was either beautiful or right. It wasn't. It was psychopathic, but you have to give the devil his due. And some of the literature is quite interesting. You have the story of the Good Samaritan, where you've got someone, a person is being beaten by robbers. The Samaritan comes along and, takes them to a lodge and then refurbishes them. Now, this is actually, if you look at the parallelism and the sequence, what you really have in the Good Samaritan story in the Gospels is a description of the Roman legion, the 12th legion, that was attacked before the Flavians came to Judea. And that legion was stripped of all of its possessions, just like the character who represents them in the story in the Gospels. So the Good Samaritan story is actually just depicting the fact that the Caesar came back and restored all of the goods, the military material, clothing, that had been stripped by the Jewish bandits from the 12th Legion to start the Roman-Jewish War. This would have been in 66 CE. So you have the following statement, and this shows you how sort of oblique typology that uses sequence can get and still make sense. So what you have in Josephus at the point where you have the Good Samaritan story in Luke is you just have this little statement that now Titus, according to the Roman usage, went out in front of the army after a decent manner and marched with the 12th Legion through Samaria. And after he had lodged there one night, right, he marched on in the morning. And then it notes that the legion was well provisioned, and that the servants of every came after it and had all of their baggage. So, this, you would never, under any circumstances, see the story of the Good Samaritan and then be able to realize that it's actually a depiction of a battle between the Romans and the Jews 40 years later. But that's what it is. Once you actually have the locations of the stories laid side by side, then you can see that it's not accidental that Samaria is mentioned in Josephus at this point, and that the Good Samaritan, Jesus is actually just representing, he's foreseeing in a divine way, because that's the kind of literature that they're creating, the kind of fantasy they're creating. He's foreseeing the godlike works of the Roman Caesar in the future. So anyway, that's an outline of the Gospels, of the typology in the Gospels, and it's I think it's a useful experience for everyone to go through, is to just to actually work through the what I call the Flavian signature. I have this in a particular chapter, and you can see the parallelism, and you can see them in sequence. I think it helps people free themselves from the power, Jeff, of this historical concept. In other words, we have been under the weight of an idea of history that was created by oligarchs for control.
Joe,
now we can be free of it.
Someone just brought up one of your great parallelisms, like when if your neighbor asks you to carry his pack for a mile, carry it for 2. Tell us what that means. We'll kind of wrap this up on that one.
Sure. Well, I mean, this is the Romans had a requirement in all of their provinces, and remember, the Roman Empire is a prison of nations at this point. Okay, so the requirement was that a Roman soldier could conscript, demand any citizen that or inhabitant of a region that he would carry the Roman soldier's backpack for 1 mile. And this is the basis of the expression milestone. Milestones were to mark the distance that the inhabitants would be forced to carry Roman legion's backpack, which weighed like 45 pounds, pretty heavy thing. So what Jesus is saying is, well, if you're told to carry a Roman soldier's backpack a mile, don't be more cooperative, be more subservient, carry it too.
Which is exactly what you would expect someone who's under military oppression by a psychopathic ruler to command. It just doesn't make any logical sense. And until you read your book and realize that if we put the Josephus War of the Jews down and we put the New Testament down and we look at the activities of Titus in one, they absolutely parallel the activities of Jesus in the other, down to the places, down to the dates. It's amazing in your work. It just opens people's eyes, and I think it's so fortuitous that we have you back today, because we're in that time where we've got to start reading between the lines and realizing that it's not time to start carrying packs. It's time to start figuring out why we're willing to even consider carrying packs.
Well said. I couldn't agree more. And I hope if I am honored by you to come back again, we can even, go further into these discussions, because I just am so concerned right now that there isn't enough skepticism. The vaccine resistance is developing, and it's, thank heavens, but it just can't progress as too quickly. It's so dangerous, and I won't go into it, but you can see I'm very, very troubled by it, and I do hope that people become more skeptical to the people who control the media, who give us information. I think my book is useful for this.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, Joe, where can people get your book, Caesar's Messiah, Flavium?
You can just Google CaesarsMessiah.com, and I have a website you can buy it at. It's available at Amazon, at lots of different places. There's a documentary about it that I think people can just get for free. You don't have to pay any money to see the documentary, and it's very well done. I'm at joeatwill@gmail.com. If you have any questions, I try to get them answered as soon as I can, but sometimes that takes a bit. But, Jeff, it's just an open book, to use an expression. And the thing is, I had, an insight. I think it's a keen insight, but really this is our birthright. This book is useful to help free us from false history, and hopefully to give us the skepticism that we need right now to have a future.
Absolutely. Joe, I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. I know it was a little bit later than you wanted to be here, and I appreciate it.
I'm a young guy, so, it's no problem.
And you're looking well. It's been a I've seen you. You're looking
organic food, man. I mean, I'm telling you, you just can't go wrong. I really no toxics, no toxins at all. I'm very fastidious about that. As I've gotten older, I really kind of appreciate how to be healthy. So
absolutely. And speaking of that, Joe, I've actually lost 50 pounds since we last spoke. So
you just look so good, but you look good even before.
Well, you're a very kind man, Joseph Atwill. And we will definitely look forward to having you back. I think we
hope so. Yeah, I'd love to come back. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, but thanks so much, Joe. All the best to you, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Ladies and gentlemen, Joseph Atwill, the author of Caesar's Messiah. Joe actually wanted to do this earlier. I appreciate him staying later than he liked, and we really appreciate it. And we will go ahead and open up the phone lines, take a couple calls, and we're going to take our first break, and we'll come back and finish up the show with your phone call. So if you do want to call, the phone lines are open at 913-279-0831. You can ask questions about Caesar's Messiah. You can ask questions about anything that Joe talked about tonight, or you don't have to stay to that subject. It is open lines. So we welcome you to call in. Just be polite, be interesting, and get right to your point. You're live. If you call in and you hear "Welcome to Christian Whistleblower," hit 0. If you hear music, you're on hold, and I'll get to you right away. So with that, you're live with Jeffrey Daugherty on Late Night in the Heartland.
It's Catherine from Ohio.
Hey, Catherine, what's up?
Hey, let me see how I can phrase this. It's about the book.
Okay.
So, in your opinion, or what you think Mr. Atwill would say, why in the world was the Gospels created then?
And we'll get into that when we get back. When Joe comes back, and it's an excellent question. The reason why the Gospels were created, I think, is, and I'm answering based on my reading Caesar's Messiah. There's a couple of dual reasons. Number one, they were trying to create a religion that the Jewish people you understand, the Jews had become an incredible nuisance to Rome because they had to keep sending legions up there. They had to keep putting down, insurrections. They were fighting and battling, and people in Rome were getting just fed up with it. They were done. So they were trying to come up with a way to satiate, calm the Jews, give them a different religion that wouldn't be so prone to insurrection. And also, one thing that Joe didn't get a chance to get into, the Romans, intentionally wrote this not only to subdue the Jews, but to also rub the Jews' face in it. It's really a very dark Roman humor that they're making fun of Judaism, and they're also laying the basis for this new religion of Christianity. And all the time, Catherine, they're saying, we make up this religion, and you guys are so stupid, you follow it. They've got us taking vaccines. They've got us staying home. They've got us putting diapers over our face. And this all started with Josephus writing the Wars of the Jews and a captured Jewish band of scribes writing the New Testament concurrently. And it's from then till now a sick, dark Roman joke. And the joke's on us, and that's why this is so important. And I thank Joe for coming on and helping us to maybe read this book and develop some skepticism.
Right, and then add in the whole pagan situation in Europe, with the dates, of the Sabbaths. Oh, he hung up on me.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. Hi. Yeah. So anyway, I was just thinking how genius, because they're getting the Jews under control, while they're getting the pagans under control up in this
absolutely book. And laying the foundation for the Roman Empire to live on in perpetuity. I mean, it's been 2,000 years, and Rome's government is still our government. Rome's religion is still our religion. Rome's culture is still our culture. Hell, we even build our buildings in Romanesque style.
Right. Although I have, I think that they're actually Turkish.
Right, but you know what I mean.
But what else is interesting too is that, oh gosh, I lost my point. But anyway, wonderful talking with you. I just thought I'd ask a question.
All right, Catherine, great question. Thanks so much. And we'll have Joe back, and we'll go more deeply into the book. And it's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, what's going on, Jeffrey? Great show again.
Thank you.
Can't argue with their own scripture, you know?
Yep.
But hey, I know you're not into the whole hopium thing, but with today being the 4th, I just got a couple facts I wanted to throw out.
Okay.
If that's good with you. So today, there was supposed to be a big crowd or whatever, according to the FBI over in Washington. But the only thing that happened was a bunch of smoke coming from the ground. And there's live footage from it, like actually dating from today. So
Of smoke coming out of the ground, right?
Yep, exactly.
What do you think is happening to cause that smoke? Feel free to theorize.
I mean, it's pretty obvious to me, man. It's a dead man zone. Like, if you watch the video, it's even on BitChute. Like, literally the street, like the guy goes through the fucking the cameras on the streets. The streets are dead. There's no movement throughout all of Washington, Georgetown, the Senate, everywhere.
You know, in the words of Captain Kirk, then Admiral Kirk, on Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, sitting on the bridge, this is damned peculiar. And it really is. It's damned peculiar.
Another peculiar fact is Big Trump was actually in Davos yesterday. And the Army was actually, they actually loaned him Air Force One, the code and everything, the code name and everything. So
wow,
over there, and usually when people are there, they talk about money, right?
They talk about money. You know, there's just enough weird shit going on to keep us keeping on with hope. And I don't know if that's good or if that's bad. Old Biker says that they are flushing out the pedo rats. Mystery Void gives us an interesting factoid. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not sure how it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I know it's, I don't know. Maybe he can explain that to me. It's 3, 4. I know that. Where's the 1, 2 coming from? Where's the 1, 2 coming from? It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeff, it's Pickles.
Hey, Pickles, what's up?
I'm wondering what's your opinion on, what do you think the role of the persecution of the Christians by the Romans?
Well, what you've got to understand is that, you know, the Christians, for some reason, like to act as if they're the only ones that have ever been persecuted and that they're the only ones that have ever been singled out for persecution. The way Rome worked was the Roman legions came and they either said, you can do what we want you to do religiously, or we're going to kill you with this sword. So it wasn't just the Christians that were forced to change their religion. So it gets a little bit skewed, and, you know, Christians want to act like they're the only ones that have ever been persecuted. And I'm certainly not for the persecution of Christians or any other religious faith. But the saying, get off the cross, we need the wood, comes to mind. It's not just the persecution of the Christians. Even today, the Uyghurs are being persecuted. Religions are being persecuted in Africa. Religious people are being persecuted across the world. You get the Falun Gong in China. So Christians, get off the cross. We need the wood. It's not just the Christians. It's the persecution of many religions, and that's kind of the answer to that. I'm going to go ahead and take our first break. If you're on hold, please hang on. We'll get right back to you after this message from our sponsor, and we will be right back to take your calls and zoom right through the hour. You're at the Unindoctrination station. This is Late Night in the Heartland. We've just enjoyed a time with Joe Atwill, and we'll be right back after this with more calls.
All FLFE subscriptions include the brain optimization program. This is brain optimization for our modern world, which, you know, today is including more and more EMF or electromagnetic fields. And we look at those as either positive electromagnetic fields, which the earth and our bodies produce those, or negative or consciousness lowering electromagnetic fields. And that's really what we're concerned with. So this brain optimization program is designed, along with the rest of FLFE, to provide more life force energy or as Chinese medicine calls it, qi, to the body. And the body is optimized through the flow of qi and life force energy throughout the body. And the brain optimization program provides more of this energy to the brain, particularly where it's most needed.
The FLFE environment is supported through something we call programs. The programs are positive declarative statements that are measured using consciousness kinesiology as taught or explored by Dr. David Hawkins. And those programs are very high level of consciousness thought forms. If you're familiar with the Hawkins map, they're at 999 out of 1,000 or higher. So there's a lot of work that goes into those. It's a very labor-intensive process. It's a labor of love, but it does take some time and effort. So they're very specifically crafted. And in the brain optimization program, they are oriented to optimize the brain. So during the day, the FLFE programs support increased functioning in the brain. Increased functioning are things like increased concentration and stamina, so we can study longer and retain more information, or be more present for those meetings or conversations. At night, the FLFE environment supports enhanced rebuilding of the physical aspects of the brain.
Focus Life Force Energy, ladies and gentlemen, my original sponsor, great folks, very powerful folks. And just to let me dot the I and cross the T of that last little rant, I'm not in favor of Christians being persecuted, but there's this sense of Christianity wrapping itself in victimization as if it's uniquely Christian. Persecution is not uniquely Christian. And the fact that Christianity is being persecuted doesn't make it the true religion any more than the fact that Islam is being persecuted makes it the true religion. That was my point. I wasn't trying to be rude or unkind, or I certainly wasn't trying to make light of anybody being persecuted. But again, anytime we wrap ourselves in the cloak of victimization, we deserve to be called out. So I won't apologize, but I did want to at least explain a little bit more, clarify. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeffrey. Hey, at one point, your guest, he mentioned, I got to talk in code, right?
Mm-hmm.
Please
do.
Pardon me?
Please do try to talk in code if you can.
I am going to. But anyway, I've named it the rainbow in the dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we all get it, we'll all be safe, right?
Right.
So anyway, so he started talking about that. And I simply commented, I like what this guy is saying. And I got put on timeout.
Please don't ever call me up and complain about being put on timeout. Please don't. That's really childish. Why would you want to take a show like this and make it about you when it's not? It's not even about me tonight. It's about Joseph Atwill. So please don't do that again. That's far below your intellect. And if you have an issue, reach for a tissue. Don't reach for the telephone. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hi, Jeff. It's John in Tulsa.
John, you're not going to complain about being put in timeout, are you?
Timeout?
I'm just kidding with you. Go ahead. What's on your mind, my friend?
Yeah, I just want to tell you what a great guy I think you are, and I'm impressed with your show. And you, especially, you remind me of my first son. He was in the Air Force. Listen to this. He's a 20-year Air Force guy. He worked with all the generals. He was in the Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany.
I've played football at Ramstein. I was on the Rhine-Main football team. We'd go down there and play them every year.
Right. And he just retired a few years ago, about 6 or 7 years ago. He's 52, I think now, close to the same age. And when you say the word dude, that's one of my son's favorite sayings, my firstborn son, dude.
Yeah, I call
And
everybody
so-
dude. Women, dude, men, dude. Everybody's
Yeah,
a
I know,
dude.
I know.
And
son
White
just
Eagle
like
Hodges
you.
is a good dude. He just had a weak moment there, so don't get misconstrue me on that last caller either.
Okay. So anyway, also, I wanted to tell you, here's this morning, this afternoon, my wife and me took the little duck back to the pond and let him go where we caught him. And he was just wagging his tail. We had him 3 weeks caged up and taking care of him, feeding him, got him healthy, and he's back in the pond. He just wagged his tail as he swam off. It was just so wonderful.
And,
to
you
be
know,
able to
people,
get him free again.
John, you mentioned that people don't understand unless you've been around ducks. And in Florida, I was around a lot of ducks. A duck really does wag its tail. And that duck was a happy duck, because if a duck is wagging its tail, it's a happy duck. Although they do tend to wag it when they get mad, they're about to bite you too. So be careful of it. You know, you got to read the duck. You got to know how to read your ducks, ladies and gentlemen. And it's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hi, Jeff. I had a question for you real quick. I've been investing in silver lately, and that I know that you kind of have a new program.
Yep.
That you're, yeah, I'm looking into that tomorrow. I just haven't had time. But my question for you is, when I know you're not a financial advisor.
I'm not.
I know, but just your opinion. When we go to this new financial system, let's just say the dollar crashes. Is there going to be a window of time where we need to get rid of it to make money? Because if they transfer to the new system, they can artificially lower silver later. So is there going to be a window, do you think, in your opinion, to like offload it?
You know, great question. I'm not the financial expert, but I don't even play one on YouTube. But there is a real expert in these things that I know, and I won't say his name because I don't think he wants to be blamed for anything either. But he's an expert, and he has talked, and he's in consultation with many people that are working on a new financial system, and he tells me that it is going to be here, and it's going to be a good thing. And what he believes will happen is that whatever assets that we have, we will be made whole in the transfer. So if you're holding cash, they'll make you hold in your cash, with the caveat that it is legitimately earned cash. If you've got cash that doesn't show up in your financials, you might have a problem actually cashing in that cash. But real cash, not funny money, not fiat money, not dirty money, but whether it's, cash, gold, silver, cryptocurrency, kind of iffy, because the whole, Tracy Dyer calls it cabal cash. And one of the reasons why there is cryptocurrency is because it can't be traced. So a lot of shady. So I don't know about the crypto, but what I understand, and this is just what I'm told, and again, I am not a financial expert, I'm not a financial advisor, but whatever assets you have, they will be transferred over and you will be kept whole. Now, it is possible that let's just say you had $100,000 in silver, since we're talking about silver. Now, they might only give you $50,000 in the new money, but that new money at $50,000 would be the equivalent worth of what your silver was at $100,000. So that is my understanding of what I'm told by the experts. And when it comes to gold, it comes to silver, you're talking about things that have been real money and things that have been real wealth for 5,000 years. Now, that's no guarantee that they will be for another 5,000 years, but we do know that it has been real wealth for 5,000 years. And it's not anything that you can, it's verifiable. Is this silver? Yeah, this is silver. I mean, if they come and it's time to turn things in, I turn these in, they're unopened. Yeah, that's silver. Then I'll get a complete, be kept whole in that. So that's the idea. Mint Builder is on my website, jeffreydaugherty.com. It allows you to get on subscriptions. Of course, I'm on the biggest one, and we get things like this, the 2-ounce Krugerrand, and there's subscriptions less than $20, and you put some silver away every month, and before you know it, you've got a nice little nest egg. I personally believe that silver is greatly undervalued. So Cynthia and I are working hard to stack up the silver. So I hope that answered your question. And you said you're going to Tampa. Recommendations. I don't know what type of recommendations you want, but if you like a beach, you got to get over to Clearwater Beach. It's beautiful. And now there's probably not that many people there. And Florida is not a big mask area, so you should be able to have some good times. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing tonight? I just wanted to comment a little bit about your talk with Mike Steele last night.
Mike King.
Mike King.
Right.
So you guys were talking about the Romanovs, and I just wanted to pose this question because he was talking about in the 18th century when they tried the League of Nations in the early 18th century, and of course Romanov was not down with the League of Nations or being a part of the central banking cabal, which is what basically ended him up on the hit list. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Excellent. So my question is, do you know who his brother was at the time?
No, I don't.
His brother was the King of England.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. So it's interesting because his brother actually warned him, and we all know, I believe it was King George. And he basically went to his brother and said, listen, if you're not down with this, later down the road, not him particularly, because they waited almost 100 years it took them to overthrow the Romanov dynasty. We all know when Anastasia and the whole World War I debacle happened, it took them quite a long time to overthrow the Russian dynasty because at the time in the early 18th century, and this is only from my own research, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I found out was because they had their own gold and their own sovereign nation, and he felt, well, my brother's the King of England, I'm not down with this. Basically, that's what undid and put the vendetta out against the Romanov family.
Makes sense to me. That's a great call. Very high-minded, and I really appreciate that. And we actually like it. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeff, good question. If the other white meat's endgame is communism in part to Christianity, I'm getting confused as far as why, through Hollywood, they throw a lot of shade on Christianity, and even in politics, like in the Obama years, where they wanted to take the tax credits away from preachers and whatnot. What you would think they would want to maybe.
Now, just let me clarify that it wasn't just to take away the tax credits from preachers of Christianity. It was to do away with 501c3 status for religious organizations. Again, not just Christianity, but religious organizations across the board.
Gotcha. So, with Hollywood, they portray Christians like buffoons, but the hatred. I don't understand where the hatred's coming from. I think they want to push Christianity to meet their goal of communism.
Well, are you a Christian?
I have been, and I'm questioning it.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised in the Catholic Church, and then basically First Baptist with the First Baptist Church youth group and all that. But I'm really questioning it right now, and because I don't see any good that has really come out of it, and
that's a good point.
I see the shame-based concept of it with the enslavement, but I guess why all the hostility, especially through Hollywood, I would think if their goal is communism, ultimately, the other white meat would want to push Christianity to that end.
Well, let's I see your point, and let's just look at it completely objectively for a second. And thanks for the call. It was a really good one. When you're talking about, there's definitely anti-Christian stereotypes in Hollywood. But also, if you had called me up and you were a practitioner of Islam, you would also say, everybody that, all we're always terrorists, we're always bombers, we're always, goat breeders in more ways than one. So you could say the Islamic people could also make the argument that they are denigrated in Hollywood as well. And it's probably true, but you've got to, this goes back to Joe Atwill's book. When the Romans wrote the New Testament, and think of the irony of it, they wrote the New Testament by employing the Jewish scribes that they didn't kill to write it, and they would pay them and clothe them and house them as long as they wrote it the way that the Romans wanted them to write it. And the way they wrote it was in a way that not only does it make fun, it makes up a new religion, and then it makes fun of the people that accept the new religion. So it is an exact carry on into today's Hollywood, where it's really the same people, the usual suspects, the other white meat. They're still, they wrote this and they know they wrote this, and they're continuing that great Roman tradition of dark humor by making fun of and I'm going to use their terminology, not necessarily my terminology, of the stupid people that still buy it. The New Testament makes up a new religion, and along the way makes fun of the people, and then in Revelation revels and takes joy in saying, "Ha, we fooled you, you dummies." So it's really just them continuing to do what they've always done since they started this thing long about 100 AD or so. Great question. I hope it was a decent answer. Come on. Show me the calls. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeff, it's Get Dagger. Great show again tonight. Joe Atwill had some really good insight on religion and on the Stupid 19. It was an awesome guest. I can't wait for him to come back.
I agree. Thank you so much.
All right, well, I got a little story today. I went to the beer store. I don't know how you return your empties out there in the States, but in Ontario, we have to bring our empties to the beer store. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it is government owned. So the last time I went in, I had no problems. They had security outside, whatever. I told them I have a disability. And you go in there for like a 30 seconds to a minute to bring in your empties. They give you your money, you're out. So anyways, today there was a manager outside. And I'm waiting out in line outside in the cold. And he's like, you're going to put on your mask outside now. I'm like, really? I have to put it on? And I was like, okay, whatever. So I pulled up my, it's like not a mask I wear, it's like the face covering. So I pulled it up and left my nose exposed. He's like, oh yeah, you have to put it over your nose too. It's a new law now. And I'm like, I have a disability. I need to breathe. I don't put my face covering on my nose. And he's like, actually you do. It's a law. And I was like, oh, okay. And then so he goes to me, he's like, if you don't want to put it on, I can give you a shield. And I'm like, okay. So he went and got his shield. As he was walking away to go get his shield, I yelled, there's a guy waiting to go, because you can return your empties and you can also buy beer on the other side of the building. So the guy was waiting outside in the cold to go in to buy his beer. And I kind of yelled, I didn't yell it out, but I was like, I have the right to breathe, just so the guy could hear me that was waiting over there. And I don't know if the manager heard me or not. Anyways, he brought back the face shield, gave it to me, so you can keep it. And I was like, don't worry, I don't come here very often. I come here like maybe once every 4 or 5 months to bring in my empties. So I was impressed. Let's put it that way. And then he goes to me, he's like, talking about all the different strains and that. And I'm like, I told him basically it's nothing different than the flu. And he's like, and then he goes to me, he's like, our conversation ends here when I started talking about that. Like, he didn't want to hear it, being a government employee and all. So I thought it was kind of, it was kind of a joke. So I finally went in there with the stupid filled on, brought in my empties, got my $10 in change or whatever. Like I said, took like 30 seconds and left. So it was kind of a joke.
Ridiculous stuff, but thanks for standing strong and working them. And, I've seen the guy in Canada in the airport saying that he wouldn't wear it, and then they write him a ticket, and he claims that, you go to court and they throw those tickets out, that no one's ever been actually prosecuted for it. I don't know. I'm not in Canada, and I'm just repeating what someone on the internet said. So I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but it did. I mean, he was there and there was police and they told him to put it on. He said, no, it's against my charter rights. I'm not going to do it. So they wrote him a ticket. And then he said, well, great, I'll get it thrown out. And that was the end of that. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. It is kind of what it is. People here, I just throw mine in the garbage because here's a little factoid for you. It costs more. It consumes more resources for you to recycle your glass than it does to throw it away and make new glass. So anyway, and it goes with tin cans as well. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
What's up, Jeff? It's Jaden out of that Oakland.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I've been letting you do your thing. We don't need me playing. You run that pirate ship like a motherfucker pimp. And I mean that from the bottom of my aorta. I'm calling from that spurious idiosyncrasy Oakland where bums be possessed by demons. But that guy that called from Canada, Vancouver, or wherever the fuck, he talked about the government ran recycling center. Hey, y'all, fuck that. He needs to put rocks in that soda cans that weigh more. He'll get that money. And that's a tip from Jaden.
There you go.
That little motherfucker. And I ain't gonna wear no mask. Fuck a mask. Mask is for ugly ass bitches, not a Jeffrey little pussy. Love the fuck out of you, homeboy. I'm gonna take my ZMA to get my boner big for when I wake up in the morning with my bitch.
All right, Jaden. Thanks, brother. Good to hear from you again. There's only one Jaden out in Oakland. I appreciate him. We give him a lot of rope because he's one of the OGs around here, and we appreciate it. And Miss Kathy loves her some Jaden as well. So do I, girl. He's the best. All right. It's Late Night in the Heartland, and you're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
It's Catherine again.
All right. It's always good. What's better than a call from Catherine? 2 calls from Catherine.
Yeah, especially when I can't remember it all the first time. So, okay, to answer the one guy, like why I have this idea, why not like push to Christianity? And my thing is that they're pushing it all and they've infected everything. So if you don't fit in one corral, you go the next and then the next and the next. And there's even a theory that, say, America was created so that all the rebels could be in one place.
Catherine, it's funny because I was saying to Cynthia earlier today that, I talked about Australia being, the place where the UK would send all of their crooks. And I just wondered, what if our plane here that we live on, saying that we don't live on a spinning ball, but we live on a plane. What if this is the place, our little section of it, is where all of the crooks and rebels are sent?
Yeah, like of the entire multiverse.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, if you remember, there was an old Twilight Zone where these aliens came and they said, we're going to kill you guys off in 24 hours if you don't get your shit together. And then they all got together and they made peace, and the aliens came back and said, look, we made peace. We got it all together. And the alien said, you dumb bitches, we're a race of warriors. You're here to learn to be warriors. So they just wiped them all out. So maybe we need to get our rebel on instead of worrying about being so touchy-feely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's all about like a chemical castration of everyone's warrior aspect.
Absolutely. And it is time for the rise of the warrior poets, Catherine, the Agarthian warrior poets.
I agree.
And that's boys and girls, Catherine.
Agreed.
And
totally.
something tells me that you are. Something tells me you are a warrior poet.
Oh, yeah, I am. Absolutely. I mean, do no harm, but take no shit.
That's right. I got you, girl. That's beautiful. And we will, that's so beautiful. It's beautiful. We will get it done when we got to get it done. Late Night in the Heartland. Something tells me this might be Mr. Atwill.
It is.
All right.
And I'm glad I got through. I don't mean to ask of your redundancy, but a quick question to clear things up. One, two, actually, with the Old Testament being having a lineage foundation, and the New Testament things like from Mr. Atwill saying that it is of a war campaign, a Roman war campaign. Josephus. Was Josephus a Sephardic? And if he was, would he be accomplice, or would he just said, "Hey, you do this, you tie these to it, or your head gets chopped off"? So that's my question to you.
All right, and great questions they are. So let's talk about Josephus. Josephus was a Jewish priest, and he was in Jerusalem, and he saw the Romans surrounding, we'll talk like Jay, and he's surrounding that motherfucker. He saw it happen. He's like, oh shit. So Josephus got him a prophecy. He's like, oh, I just got a word from the Lord. And right before they captured him, they took him in to face Caesar because they were going to kill him. And he says, oh, I got a prophecy. The Lord is telling me, the God of Israel is telling me that he has turned from the Jews and he's given his power unto Caesar. And you, Caesar, are the true God, and I want to work for you. So Caesar's like, oh, how about I make you my historian? And they even adopted him into his family. So it's Josephus Flavius Josephus. So he became the official historian of the Roman Empire. And it was Josephus who had written the War of the Jews, which outlined the campaigns of Titus. So Josephus was put in charge of using other Jewish scribes to write the New Testament. And they wrote it to exactly mirror the Wars of the Jews written by Josephus. So it all lines up. And so Josephus was part of the scam. Great question. And I think a decent answer. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeffrey. How are you, Shane? Folk Shift.
What's up?
Not much. Hey, a little bit off topic. Wanted to just fill you in on something that I heard this morning.
Okay.
Going back to the stupid 19, but my girlfriend works at a penitentiary, a state prison here locally, and I woke up this morning and it's like, hey, how's work and blah blah. They're gearing up tonight at 3 a.m. The military is coming in, the National Guard's coming into that specific prison to vaccinate the inmates, and it's voluntary.
Wow.
But I was shocked. Yeah, I was shocked to hear that that's how they're rolling it out. And she said, yeah, and I threw a couple scenarios out there, and then she said, yeah, I get where you're coming from, but they've already done it in X, Y, and Z prisons, and that wasn't the case, so that's probably not going to happen here. And she said 100 inmates an hour is their average of what they're doing. So they're coming in at 3, and I was just blown away, bro. I just want to share that.
So, just being objective, it sounds like that maybe they have made the decision that the folks that are in prisons might not be the kind of folks that they want to have continuing in civilization. So we want to get rid of the old people because they're the only ones that remember the truth. But let's also get rid of these prisoners because they're a pain in the ass. I don't know. That is a little deep, and I think that might be what they're thinking. But guess what? They got a jab waiting for you, and they got a jab waiting for me, but I am not about to do it. Fred with an interesting comment. Sounds like training for something bigger. Yeah. Old Biker says Josephus was like Mitch McConnell, a turncoat. Absolutely. 100%. Crazy times, ladies and gentlemen. Crazy times. But it's just, when times get tough, the tough don't run for their safe room and their blankie. The tough get going. So it is time for us to get going. And I do agree with Dominic. He's talking about extraterrestrials, meaning from other lands outside of our plane. I agree 100%. I think, who is this? Kathy? Where did I see her? She was questioning whether or not all these people are even really taking the vaccine. Cindy, I can't believe so many people are taking the vaccine. No way. It sounds like she's questioning whether people really are taking the vaccine or not. I don't know. That's a great point. And yeah, who knows, man? Who knows? Who really knows what's going on? Who really knows what's happening? I don't know. But if you have a thought, 913-279-0831. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Just a minute. I got to turn this damn sound off.
All right.
Yes. I'm having trouble with it, Jeff. Sorry. Hey,
No, I can't hear it.
Back in about. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can't hear the background. You're fine.
Yeah, okay, good. Remember that movie I was telling you about, 1971, The Omega Man?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Charlton Heston played with an actress by the name of Rosalind Cash, and this was the first kiss between a black woman and a white man on any movie, 1971.
And here's a trivia question for you, John. What was the first interracial kiss on television?
That I don't know for sure, except it might have been when he kissed Oprah Winfrey. He went on the show with her, and he actually leaned over. They were talking about this kiss, and he kissed her on her show, and she was just going ecstatic over it because Charlton Heston had kissed her.
Well, actually, the first interracial kiss on at least U.S. television was when Captain Kirk, William Shatner, kissed Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek. And now we know the first interracial movie kiss was Charlton Heston and Ms. Cash on The Omega Man. Thank you, John. Always enlightening. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Jeffrey, Shane again. Sorry to interrupt, but one more thing. There's two more points that I didn't add on. She said that set up in different staging areas. And everything accounted for. Everything has a number, of course. So staging area 1 is after you're going to get your vaccine. The inmates are going to get their vaccine. Then they go into an observation deck. And she said there's already 3 ambulances outside in the parking lot on standby. And that's all I wanted to add. So
wow. So they're already knowing that there's going to be complications because, folks, there's been a lot of weird complications. There's been a lot of deaths. Don't take the vaccine, period. Do not take the vaccine. You had Joseph Atwill, a true scholar, as somebody that is way more refined than I am. He's also warning you, don't take the vaccine. Just don't take it, period. It's bad news, and it won't do you any good. He didn't kiss an alien. They were both Earthlings, in fact, on Star Trek. They were being held captive by aliens, and they were forced to kiss. So there you go. Will C. considers himself like sweet white chocolate. That's in response to Monica saying that he had to have some of that sweet. She said brown chocolate or milk chocolate, but I get what she was saying. I understand that, Monica. I'm with you. So, yeah, I'd rather get shot than take it. You know, I've heard, and this is, I don't know how he says his name, Tenebris. He's got a new channel. Go over there and subscribe to it. But there's a lot of people that say that they will go down shooting rather than take that shot. Absolutely. 100%. Captain Kirk in the new Star Trek did have some relations with the Orion slave girl. So, and I mean, come on, guys. Can we be honest? Do you blame him? Look me in the eye and tell me that, of course, not if you're married, but just, tell me that you wouldn't have had sex with that Orion slave girl, either on the original show or on the TV. They were hot. Come on now. Let's just be honest. Tracy says that those who are vaccinated are contagious. Thank you, Tim, for that. I really appreciate it. Steffers agrees she was hot. Both the movie version and the TV version, both very, very attractive ladies. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey.
Joe, what's on your mind?
Regarding the virus in the vaccine thing. Is it, legally speaking, illegal to somehow trick or force or coerce a person to take the vaccine?
You know, I don't know legally. I don't know. I'm not an attorney, obviously, but and I've heard Alan Dershowitz say that they could make a legal case for forced vaccination. The way I read the Constitution, to me, that's very, very much unlawful search and seizure. I don't think that there's a legal and anywhere that you see, oh, it's a law. It's not a law. At the most, it's a mandate. It's a governmental mandate, and you don't have to do it. Maybe you have to shop at another store, or maybe you have to, buy your Wheaties somewhere else. Shouldn't be eating Wheaties anyway. But no, I don't personally, from what I've seen and from the attorneys that I've listened to, that there is no legal standing for it. It is a mandate. It is not a law. And even sneaky Joe Biden says that they couldn't make it a law. He didn't think that he could get it passed. So don't take the vaccine and don't wear the mask. That is my opinion. And that's the way I'm rolling, and I am sticking to it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah, Dershowitz was on the jet to the island. So that tells you all you need to know about Dershowitz. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, what's up, cuz?
Hey.
It's Fish from Ohio.
What's up, man?
I was thinking about something. You really had a good show, like 3 nights. Outstanding show the last 3 nights.
Thank you.
And something that I really like about it is the fact that we can all share something.
Yes.
Because the Rods told me that he was going to save my legs.
Yes, they did. And I'm standing on that.
I got news that they're going to be able to save it.
Are you serious, bro? Bam.
Swear to God.
That's what I'm talking about. We said
that's what I call overnighter.
Hey, we aim to please. We aim to please. And I felt so strongly. That is the best news I have ever heard in such a long time.
I just want to finish up by telling you that I did try to get through to you on your email about the pictures that I told you that I would take care of.
Okay. Oh, I did get them. I remember seeing them. I didn't have time to look at them in detail, but I saw them.
The spider one. Make sure that collage, no kid sees that.
Oh, absolutely. I'll make sure there ain't no kids around here.
It's terrible. You might want to show the audience, but don't show the kids.
I won't. Hey, that is so.
JG, I had to call tonight, man. I had to. I was like, he's going to be just waiting for this,
That is so unbelievable. Thank you so much. Let me just fill in the story. This is one of our great veterans, one of our great American veterans, and he went through wars and came home from the service and then got bit by a damn spider on his own back porch and lost a leg. And then he was getting some infection in his good leg. And he called in and said, I want to ask the Rods. And generally I don't do this kind of thing, but I felt like I should do it. Ask the Rods, am I going to be able to walk again? And I'm like, I don't know. But we did it. And the Rods said, yes, he is going to be able to walk again. And today he goes and they tell him, you know what? We got the test back or something like that. We are going to be able to save that leg. Damn, that's what I'm talking about. That is some real stuff right there. These Rods deserve a little love. Thank you, Rods. That's a beautiful, beautiful stuff. Michael, that's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And it really is. Damn, that makes it all worthwhile. We should end the show on that, but it's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going, friend?
Great. What's on your mind?
Oh, well, I heard talking about this vaccine crap, and are you aware of the Nuremberg Code?
Yes, and it is against the Nuremberg Code, isn't it?
Right. Article 6, Section 3 states leaders should be aware that mandating masks on the citizens of a nation and preventing their access to food, healthcare, transport, or education if they do not comply, it is a war crime. Masks or any other medical intervention must remain voluntary.
Absolutely, 100% correct. So there you have it, straight from the Nuremberg Code, ladies and gentlemen. Straight from the Nuremberg Code. Congratulations coming in for Fish. That is just absolutely fantastic news. I can't wait to tell Cynthia. I know that she's probably asleep by now, but man, good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. And Linda is corroborating that it is most certainly against the Nuremberg Code. It is fabulous that his leg can be saved. Beautiful stuff, folks. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And you know what? I had a little bit of a rough day. Woke up and I moved a bunch of stuff yesterday. My back was kind of messed up, but miraculous recovery. But I'm a little bit off of my game. So what we're going to do is cut the show a little short tonight. We're going to go ahead and end it. I really appreciate everybody being here. I really appreciate everybody calling in. And it was so good to get that good news. I felt like that's just the way that we want to leave it, is on that great news of our brother getting to keep his leg. Folks, you know, I take a lot of shit about those rods, and maybe some of it's deserved, but I tell you what, that right there is worth it all. This has been Late Night in the Heartland, and I want to thank y'all for making my day. Thanks to Tracy, Jama, all the great moderators. I feel perfect now, but I was just a little tired from fighting off some pain earlier today. Give a thumbs up and a thumbs down on your way out. Please subscribe to the channel. We'll have Joe Atwill back again. I think I'll get him on a little bit earlier because I think he there's a reason he asked, because I didn't want to tire him out. We'll be back tomorrow night, maybe before then. I salute you for being here, seeking after truth.